Yes, good afternoon, officers. Let's do today's newspaper analysis. 13th June 2025. 5 to 6 important topics are there. Fatafat kar lenge. So, what are the topics for today? Urbanization, tariffs, India-US trade agreement, Bangladesh slipping into authoritarianism on Bangladesh. Next, retail inflation, 6-year low. India condemns vandalism of Tagore home. Very important topic. Next, IEA board. Sorry. Iran not complying. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 major topics are there for today's newspaper. So we have arranged everything in terms of point wise. So your work is to just do only 3 things. Revise, revise, revise. You do that, you get your score. We are not here to do storytelling. We are here to do pointers. What kind of questions can come in prelims? What kind of questions can come in mains? And what are the things that we have to mention once those questions pop up in the exam? This is our major objective and focus. Don't shift from this. Okay. So your work is to revise, revise, revise. As simple as this. So let's go for the first topic. Urbanization and challenge of ideal transit solutions. So urban population in India to project 60% by 2060s. So that's a big one. So problems will be urbanization, mobility planning and infrastructure demand. These are the 3 major focus areas. Now, shift from rural to urban. Transportation planning is very much required. Once people come inside, you will have a problem of congestion. That means irukkuporam and inefficiencies. Ekku janam unte efficiency taggipotundi. Now, without integrated planning is very much required. There will be traffic problems and there will be pollution problems. So the overall storyline is urban population will increase by 60%. Mobility planning, urbanization problems, infrastructure problems will be there. Rural to urban transportation will be a big issue. Let's say we solve that issue, you will have congestion problems in terms of population. Once more population is there, governance problems and administrative problems will come, and that leads to a lot of inefficiencies also. And finally, with that, you will have traffic problems and pollution problems. So these are the major focus points if you have to write an answer on this issue. So let's look at some more details. Weak urban bus infrastructure. So bus infrastructure is very bad. 35,000 buses exist against the need for 2 lakh people. 37% urban access is less. Prime Minister's e-bus Seva scheme only for 10,000 buses. Prime Minister's e-drive for electric mobility. These are the major focus areas. Now, problem is gap is there in spite of the schemes. Public transport is still a big issue for many people. So if we have to shift this to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, this shift should be from Tier 2 to Tier 3 should be shifted, then the mobility gap will reduce. So this is the fundamental analysis of it. Now, cost recovery crisis in metro systems. So next topic is about metro systems. Problem is fare sensitivity, that means paisa, ticket cost. Public transport economics, that's another major focus areas. And public-private partnership failure is there. These are the 3 major focus areas with respect to metros. In spite of investments, metro systems are underperforming. Why? Because of poor ridership, not much people are utilizing metro facilities, and low fare box recovery. So the investments and the recovery are not in proportion. Therefore, it's a flop show. And because of this, still the systems are running. Therefore, you will have operational losses. Underutilized assets, lot of metro trains are not even working properly, in sense that people are not utilizing them, therefore the trains are khali. And finally, future expansion plans will take a big hit. So shift has to move towards integrated fare systems, last mile connectivity, and good and dynamic pricing models. So these are the major areas where government has to focus on. Fare system, last mile connectivity, and finally pricing models. Dynamic pricing models are very much required. So based on this is the solution for the metro system. First one we spoke about bus, second we spoke about metro. Next. What about electric vehicles? Electric and alternative vehicles, e-mobility concepts, hydrogen transit, green urban transport. These are the focus areas. So please focus this. E-mobility, hydrogen transit, and green urban transport. These are the major areas that we have to write in our exam. These points must come. So you have to give a big support for e-buses, e-rickshaws, and hydrogen CNG based systems. Climate is also being taken care of. Now, analysis shows only 45% improvement is in bus profitability post electric vehicle shift. Now we have to move towards full transition for electric and hydrogen vehicles that can reduce operational costs and emissions. What are the benefits? Operation cost will reduce a lot. Pollution also will reduce a lot. These are the major things. This is with respect to electric vehicles. So our focus was electrical and alternative. Alternative is hydrogen transit systems. Next. For these vehicles, the issue is funding problems. So the problem for all this will be funding and private sector participation. So public finance concepts that we have to mention in our exam. We have to mention about public finance, subsidy models, private investment, hesitation. These are the three focus areas. Public finance, subsidy models, and private investment, hesitation. These are the major three things. So problem is, financial bandwidth is not there. It's very less, especially for subsidies. So go in that. Private sector fears. Okay, so let's say we bring private players. They are frightened to invest because if subsidies model is also not working, then how will private model work? And private people will come only for profit development. So if they put 100 rupees, they have to get at least 120 rupees. But here the issue is if they are putting 100 rupees, they are not even getting 100, they are getting 80 or 90. So it is a loss-making process. Therefore, they are frightened. So short-term pilots is our current program, but long-term biscuit. Institutional finance chestara, sovereign funds chestara, ఇవన్నీ చేయాలంటే ఒక viable public-private partnership అనేది చాలా important. So the government should be able to convince our private players, yes, in a long-term process, you are bound to get profits. That depends upon the administration and the planning and the trust of the private players on the public entities. ఇవన్నీ ఉంటేనే PPP models are going to work. So this is the area. So here we discussed about electric and alternative vehicles like hydrogen transit systems. And here we spoke about what is the funding constraints. So these are the major areas. So if you look at this, we spoke about bus transit, metro, then we spoke about electric and alternative vehicles, then we spoke about funding constraints, and finally, regional innovation, or you must do replication. Copy and I examples istunna. Kochi and Kolkata use tram systems and integrated grid-based systems. Like that, we can use it. Localized transit models should be encouraged, and decentralized innovation is also very much required. So these are very important points for your mains. This is a very good example which already works out very well. So regional success shows scalable models can exist beyond metro-centric focus. Grid-based, region-specific mobility plan may offer sustainable urban transport models. So if you observe this, regional innovation is a must for us right now. Example, Kolkata and Kochi tram systems, better than metro systems, and integrated and decentralized administration should be there, especially for this particular projects, because if it's becoming centralized, then for everything they have to ask the center, and by the time the funds come in or the technology comes in, it becomes a big problem. So regional localization is very much required for development of this transport modules. I hope all of you are able to understand. Very simple topics. Next topic for today. Trump's tariffs and US-India trade agreement. What is the issue? Let's have a quick glance. I put everything in a tabular form so that it's easy for you to revise. Tariffs and what is expenditure. First, let's look at all the concepts which are there in this particular article. If you don't understand the concepts, you will never understand the article. Therefore, I'm making your work very simple. I put all the concepts first, and then we'll get into the article and the data and all that stuff. Tariffs are taxes imposed by one country on the goods and services imported from another country. That is called tariff concept. Next, national emergency justification. What do you mean by it? A legal claim by a government to impose tariffs citing threats to the national interest of that particular country. For example, US ki loss out in then US can put a legal claim saying that we are increasing the tariff because you participating is resulting in a loss in our country. Therefore, legally we are putting a tariff. And vice versa. India can also put a tariff for the goods and services which other country provides if the national interest of that particular country is getting lost. India can national interest, if the national interest is being compromised, or if the profits are reducing, or if it's becoming a burden for India, then what we can do, we can put tariff on the other country and ask them to pay more. That's the basic thing. So that is called national emergency justification. This becomes a legal way to put tariffs. It's a legal mechanism to put tariffs on other countries. Next, WTO, I hope all of you know, World Trade Organization. It's a global institution that regulates international trade rules and resolves disputes. Next, OBBB Act, one big beautiful bill. Very important concept for your prelims as well as for your mains. What is this concept? It's a proposed US legislation to provide companies immunity from tariff-related legal actions while raising tariffs on key imports. So very, very important concept for your prelims as well as for your mains. So OBB Act, one big beautiful bill. దీన్ని కన్సిడర్ చేయడానికి ఏంటంటే ఒక ఇమ్యూనిటీ తీసుకొస్తారు, a proposed US legislation where companies are immune to this kind of tariffs. So that's how they protect their companies. For example, India US company మీద ఒక టారిఫ్ వేసింది అనుకో, US లో ఆ కంపెనీకి ఇమ్యూనిటీ దొరుకుతుంది. So to avoid the tariff, so US government will speak to Indian government and say, dude, this is not correct. Vice versa మళ్ళీ ఇండియా కూడా అట్లానే చేయొచ్చు. నెక్స్ట్, రిటాలియేటరీ టారిఫ్స్. రిటాలియేటరీ అంటే రివెంజ్ సీక్వెన్సెస్ మాట. దీంట్లో ఏమంటే కౌంటర్ టారిఫ్స్ ఇంపోజ్డ్ బై ఎఫెక్టెడ్ కంట్రీస్ లైక్ ఇండియా ఇన్ రెస్పాన్స్ టు యూఎస్ టారిఫ్స్ ఎస్కలేటింగ్ ట్రేడ్ టెన్షన్స్ అవుతాయి. సో దిస్ ఇస్ అన్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ కాన్సెప్ట్ ఫర్ యువర్ మెయిన్స్. సో దీస్ ఆర్ కాల్డ్ రిటాలియేటరీ టారిఫ్స్ అంటే రివెంజ్ సీక్వెన్సెస్. సో ఇప్పుడు యుఎస్ ఇండియాతో కథపడింది అనుకోండి, ఇండియా కెన్ గివ్ అ రిటాలియేటరీ టారిఫ్స్ ఆన్ దోస్ గూడ్స్ అండ్ ప్రొటెక్ట్ అవర్ ఇంట్రెస్ట్స్. సో ఎండ్ ఆఫ్ ద డే ఇండియాకి ప్రాఫిట్ రావడం అనేది చాలా చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్. అంతా నాన్ సెన్స్. కీప్ ఇట్ దట్. సో what are the, since we have done with the concepts, let's look at all the major points. US proposal to impose 50% tariffs on Indian steel and aluminum. These are the major factors. That will, if they put 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum, what will happen? మనం ఎక్కువ డబ్బులు కట్టాలి, అక్కడ ఎవరు కొంటారు, సో మన వాల్యూ పడిపోతుంది. So those who are the buyers of steel and aluminum from India will stop buying because of the tariff. సో 100 రూపాయల ప్రోడక్ట్ 150 రూపీస్కి వెళ్ళింది అనుకోండి, ఎవరు కొంటారు? లంసమ్స్ లో విల్ నాట్ బై. సో ఇండియన్ స్టీల్ అల్యూమినియంకి డిమాండ్ తగ్గిపోతుంది బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ప్రైస్. దానివల్ల ఇండియన్ ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్కి బక్కడా దబ్బాలత్తా అండ్ కీ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ బైలెటరల్ ట్రేడ్. నెక్స్ట్, స్మాల్ అండ్ మీడియం ఇండియన్ ఎక్స్పోర్టర్స్ విల్ హ్యావ్ అ బిగ్ ఫట్, పర్టికులర్లీ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ ఇంజనీరింగ్ గుడ్స్. దానివల్ల కాంపిటేటివ్నెస్ భయంకరంగా తగ్గిపోతుంది. దిస్ అనదర్ పాయింట్ దట్ యూ కెన్ మెన్షన్. సెకండ్ స్టార్ పాయింట్, దిస్ ద ఫస్ట్ స్టార్ పాయింట్. నెక్స్ట్, యుఎస్ సైట్స్ 44.4 billion trade deficit with India. Indian data shows service surplus for US, especially in IT as well as consulting. దానివల్ల డేటా సిమెట్రీ కరెక్ట్గా లేదు. వాళ్ళ డేటా వేరే ఉంది, మన డేటా వేరే ఉంది. సో డేటా సిమెట్రీ అండ్ నెగోషియేషన్ ఫెయిర్నెస్, ఈ రెండు ఇష్యూస్ వస్తాయి. So this is the third major point that you can mention in India-US tariffs. Next, uncertainty is a big problem, especially on tariffs on Apple's India-made products after India's ambition of becoming a global electronics hub. మనం ఎదుగుతున్నాం అంటే వేరే వాళ్ళు తొక్కడానికి ట్రై చేస్తారు. This one scheme. So there is another fourth point you can mention as an example. Such moves discourage FDI in electronics, but semiconductors, but and Make in India program direct గా ఫట్ మాట. సో ఎఫ్డిఐస్ తగ్గిపోతే మేక్ ఇన్ ఇండియా ప్రోగ్రామ్ కూడా ఫ్లాప్ అయ్యే ఛాన్స్ ఉంటుంది. సో వీ షుడ్ బి వెరీ కేర్ఫుల్. సో ఇఫ్ యూ లుక్ ఎట్ ఆల్ దీస్ పాయింట్స్, ఫస్ట్ వీ స్పోక్ అబౌట్ ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్. ఇఫ్ యూ లుక్ ఎట్ ద మేజర్ పాయింట్స్, We spoke about exports, then exporters problems, then deficit problems, data symmetry problems, negotiation problems, global electronics hub, Apple's example, FDI flow, make in India. So these are all the points that the person who's correcting your paper wants to see. Therefore, you have to mention all these things very, very clearly. So moving on. Next is H1B issues, visa issues. Indian diaspora is facing a big problem. Digital taxes, trade complaints, digital sovereignty policies baga debadintai because of pressure on India. So, deenivalla India has to face challenges in protecting IT service exports under the US scrutiny. As G20 president, India is expected to uphold multilateral trade, but US tariff actions disrupt WTO-led efforts. So, ఇది ఒక major international forums లో India present చేయొచ్చు that US is trying to screw us unnecessarily. So, India's role become very diplomatically sensitive because retaliation and WTO commitment రెండింటిని balance చేయాలి. ఈ frictions ఉన్నా సరే India has a chance to negotiate a better bilateral agreement on topics of data localization, digital service taxation, export diversification, and market access for Indian pharma as well as agri exports. So, manam IT services kaakunda other areas where we can discuss a peaceful dealers, data localization, digital service taxation, export diversification, market access for pharma as well as agri exports. So this becomes a major point that you can mention in spite of this tariff problem. So mains ki chala important in a topic. So keep this in mind. So your answer should consist of all these things. That's how you have to give a good answer diplomatically. So what a person who's correcting your paper wants to see is, it's not about how much information you have. It's about how you are doing analysis and how you can diplomatically solve if you are sent as an ambassador to another country. So think in that angle. So each particular candidate, if he or she is made an US ambassador, they can deal with those problems. Anedi manaku teliyali. Andike you have to focus on these points. So for all the very, very serious aspirants who are watching the videos, concentrate on the keywords which I am mentioning and concentrate on the things which I am circling out. And wherever I am putting star marks, those points have to be mentioned in your exam. Direct. If you mention, you are bound to get a fantastic score. So moving on, the next topic is Bangladesh sitting into authoritarianism? Authoritarianism is a political concept, social concept, economic concept, where it's almost like dictatorship, but sometimes a single person does, sometimes a whole system does, sometimes a party does, sometimes few people do it. So either ways, it's a form of dictatorship. So if Bangladesh becomes a dictatorship, what will be the problem for India? That is what we have to bother. We are not bothered about what Bangladesh will do inside. Because if we touch their sovereignty, they will not like it. And if they touch our sovereignty, we will not like it. Therefore, we have to think in that direction. So let's look at all the issues. Is Bangladesh living into authoritarianism? What I have done is, what are the issues I have mentioned and impact on India, and finally strategic caution for India. How India should be cautious. Authoritarian drift and erosion of democracy. మన చుట్టుపక్కల డెమోక్రసీ ఉంటే మనకు బాగానే ఉంటుంది, అందరూ మనలాగా ఫాలో అవుతారు. కానీ పాకిస్తాన్ ఒకలాగా ఉంది, బంగ్లాదేశ్ ఒకలా ఉంది, చైనా ఒకలాగా ఉంది, కింద శ్రీలంక ఒకలాగా ఉంది. ఈచ్ ఆఫ్ దెమ్ హ్యావ్ their own nothing is democratic, everything is almost authoritarian or dictatorship. So India's credibility భయంకరంగా తగ్గిపోతే, especially in the regional leader. But it's a big dakka this is. Therefore, we should do quiet diplomacy and restoration of electoral norms without appearing interventions. వాళ్ళు ఇన్వాల్వ్ కాకుండా వాళ్ళ లీడర్స్ మనం కన్విన్స్ చేసుకుని, భయా నువ్వు డిక్టేటర్షిప్ ఫామ్ లోకి వెళ్ళకు, యూ బెటర్ బీ ఇన్ ద డెమోక్రటిక్ ఫామ్ అండ్ బ్రింగ్ ఎలక్షన్స్ ఇన్ టు పిక్చర్, లెట్ ద పీపుల్ రూల్. That is what we have to softly tell them in spite of poking them. That is first point. So this is one major point that you have to mention. This is the first point. Next, let's look at second, border tensions and potential refugee influx. That's another big issue that we have to. అక్కడ డిక్టేటర్షిప్ వచ్చిందంటే అక్కడున్న హిందూస్, ముస్లిమ్స్, క్రిస్టియన్స్ అందరూ ఇండియాకి ఇన్ఫ్లక్స్ అవుతారు. మళ్ళీ ఇక్కడ ఆల్రెడీ పాపులేషన్ ఇస్ టూ హై. సో విత్ దట్ ఇన్ఫ్లక్స్ వీల్ హ్యావ్ రెఫ్యూజీ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్, internal security problems, sort of other problems. So giving them shelter, it's good, but first we have to deal with our family and then we can think of other families. So illegal migration భయంకరంగా పెరుగుతుంది. It's a big problem, like in Assam and Bengal, and communal unrest will again start forming. So these are the major points that you have to mention. దీనివల్ల border security, preemptive refugee policy, and intelligence coordination. All these points have to be mentioned for your mains. Direct గా మీరు చక్కగా మెయిన్స్ లో మెన్షన్ చేయాల్సిన పాయింట్స్ ఇవి. So this is another issue. The next issue is rising military influence and governance. This is second point. Third point that you have to mention. Strategic instability will rise. Rise of China-backed influence. India problem ఉండగానే China first వచ్చేసి come on, make it more problems बोलते. So China will start supporting Bangladesh, already supporting Pakistan. So this is called Chinese checker policy under them. So China will surround us completely, including the string of pearls, and they will asphyxiation చేస్తారు, అంటే ఇట్లా గొంతు పట్టేసినట్టు ఉంటుందన్నమాట. So India will be surrounded from all sides because the other countries, our neighbors, are supporting China. That's a big problem. So and Indian leverage తగ్గిపోతుంది. దానివల్ల ఒక high level strategic communication పెట్టుకోవాలి, diplomacy with caution, especially in the area of defense. This has to be done. So this is another major point that you have to mention in your mains answer. So mains के लिए बहुत important है, तो देखो. Next important point is connectivity problems, connectivity and economic risks. This is a major thing. Fourth big problem, and very important for your mains. If you look at this, trade corridors, Dhaka Lag Jata, energy grids, gone case, transnational projects, and Act East policy, rendu bhayankaranga bad అయిపోతాయి. These are the hit areas. So how should we deal with it? Caution. Intergovernmental MOU sign చేయాలి, bipartisan goodwill పెంచుకోవాలి, Bangladesh factions ని తగ్గించాలి. So these are the major points that you have to mention for connectivity and economic risks. And moving on, if you look at this, next political engineering and King's Party. ఇది పెద్ద ఇష్యూ, ఇది చాలా too political అయిపోతుంది, but very important point that you have to mention. This is the fifth major point that you have to write. One is civil society backlash, trust among pro-democracy groups తగ్గిపోతుంది. దానివల్ల పొలిటికల్ న్యూట్రాలిటీ మనం మెయింటైన్ చేయాలి, ఎలక్టరల్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్ ఎంకరేజ్ చేయాలి, ట్రాన్స్పరెంట్ డెమోక్రటిక్ నార్మ్స్ ఫాలో కావాలి. సో దిస్ ఆల్సో అనదర్ very important for your mains. So issues with respect to King's Party, what are the things? So if dictatorship gets popularity, democracy will get unpopular. That is our whole point. So for a long time, democracy has been popular. After dictatorship, kings, rulers, democracy. Again, dictatorship will start, then democracy will become unpopular and authoritarianism will become popular. Danivalla, democratic groups ki overall ga popularity taggipai. People will not believe in democracy anymore, and which is a big danger, which will lead to World War III. That is the whole point. So if you look at all these points, see what we have discussed, especially in Bangladesh issues and what will happen. We talked about authoritarian drift, then we spoke about border tensions, then we are talking military influence and democracy, connectivity and economic risks, and then we talked about King's Party and political engineering. See the points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major points, its impact on India and the proper things that India has to do and how careful it must be. So like this, you have to write your mains answer. Next important topic for today, retail inflation eases to 6-year low. So that is the topic for today. So let's look at all the major concepts involved in it first. First, what is the point here and what are the things? First, historic decline in CPI. Consumer Price Index భయంకరంగా తగ్గింది, 6-year low కెళ్ళింది. CPI based inflation dropped to 2.8%, 75 month low since 2019, indicating significant price stability. Next, record low starts in 25-26. First 2 months average to 2.99. This became 2.8%. Lowest opening since 17-18 because of rate cuts by RBI. This is another important point. Food and beverage inflation falls. It's a good thing. From 2.1% in April, it went to 1.5% in May. 7th consecutive decline which happened. success of government and market forces and controlling prices. So very beautiful point, good for the public, good for the government also. Next, price deflation in essentials. Vegetables fell 13.7%, pulses fell 8.2%, spices 2.8%, meat 0.4%. Danavalla, pressure is reduced on household budgets, but oils still face inflation. So these are the major statistics that you have to remember. So it is a proof that government is taking care of every household indirectly. So that's a very good thing from the government side. So very, very important for your mains. Next, edible oil and policy response. This risk is there with respect to oil. What is the issue? Global prices, imports raise edible oil prices, customs duty cut on crude edible from 20% to 10%. This to curb inflation. This is what the government is doing. So very, very important point. And finally, RBI policy. Economics predict further interest rate cuts, leveraging easing inflation and subdued core inflation for more economic activity. So policy paranga kuda, what are the things? So if you look at the points that have been mentioned, if you observe this carefully, CPI decline, it's a good thing. Low start, good thing. Food and beverage inflation falls, it's a very good thing. Price deflation in essentials, it's a very good thing. But oil risk, danger. And finally to RBI policy, what can be done? Further rate cuts unnayani cheptunnaru, so that's a very good thing. But if it goes too low, that's also very dangerous. So we should be ready for both of them. What are the important concepts which we have studied? Let's have a quick glance at this. CPI ante enti? Consumer Price Index. It measures changes in prices of basket of goods and services consumed by households. So this is the explanation. And what is the relevance to news? Calculate retail inflation 2.8% in May 2024. Next, retail inflation ka matlab kya hai? What is retail inflation? Percentage increase in consumer price index over time, cost of living rise. Adi, that retail inflation. Retail and enti shop lo konukunedu. Simple, in simple words, retail market is what market? Starts from production center, moves towards wholesale centers. From wholesale centers, it shifts to retail centers. So as it moves from the production center to the wholesale center, prices will increase. From wholesale market, if it goes to retail market, there also prices will increase. And the shopkeeper will again sell it to the consumers for his or her profit because they are running a shop. So finally, the paisa should be filled by whom? The consumer only. That shows that if retail inflation is less, that means consumers can buy more products and households and families will be happy. So that is a major concept. So retail inflation is a very, very beautiful thing. If the retail inflation falls, it's good for the consumers. That's a major point. So this is the concept. Next, what do you mean by deflation? Inflation ante price rise, deflation ante kinda pattukodu. Decline in prices for goods and services, and it is opposite of inflation. So this is the concept observed in vegetables, pulses and spices, especially in May 2025. It is statistics. Next, what do you mean by customs duty? Tax imposed on imports and exports of goods. Concept, imports and exports of goods means the tax name antaru, customs duty. Government reduced duty on edible oils because oils has become costly because of the price variations overall in the market. And dani valla inflation control chestunaru. So this is a very, very good point. And next, what do you mean by monetary policy, which includes rate cuts? It's given by RBI. Central bank's strategy to manage inflation and growth via interest rate changes. Whatever loans they are giving to the banks, they will change it. And whatever the banks have to collect from the customers, they will change it. That's all decided by the monetary policy, which is given by the RBI. That is the whole thing. This is the concept. And what is the whole effect of it? RBI may reduce interest rates due to falling inflation. So this is the impact on it. And what do you mean by core inflation? Inflation excluding volatile items like food and fuel. So what do you mean by core inflation? You remove in core inflation volatile products and whose prices keep changing here and there. If those products like foods and oils, if you remove them, remaining items with the pade tax and it's called inflation. all the remaining items except volatile items like food as well as fuel. ఈ తీసేసిన తర్వాత whatever remaining items are there, వాటి మీద పడే prices ని వాళ్ళ hike ని it's called core inflation. So these are the major concepts which are there in the article. Therefore all the concepts are clearly covered. So have a quick glance. CPI करे, retail inflation करे, deflation करे, customs duty करे, monetary policy we have done, and core inflation also we have done. These are all the major concepts involved in this particular topic. Next, this is a very sad thing. India condemns vandalism and irregular. Ever the Tagore Garu illuni in Bangladesh. Tagore Garu was one of the great person who was able to bring India-Bangladesh relations manchiga. Bengal, Bangladesh, anta manchiga cheste. Ayan illu pagalotarante vallu enta foolish people oksaru aalincharu. So, what is the things of Mr. Tagore Garu, Rabindranath Tagore Garu illu? So, what is very important? Let's have a quick glance. Diplomatic condemnation by India. India has done it. India through Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randir Jaiswal, attack on Tagore's ancestral home. Tarataralu vachi neelani padagottesinaru. It's a serious cultural and historical violation and proactive steps in safeguarding heritage beyond borders. So this is what the minister has said. Share the cultural legacy మీద దెబ్బ కొట్టినట్టే అని చెప్పారు. Tagore is a symbol of Indio-Bangladesh cultural unity. This vandalism affects shared heritage as Tagore is a revered, means respected, just not in India but in Bangladesh, where his works shaped Bengali identity. So that is the importance of this great person. Rising concerns over pluralism in Bangladesh. The MA noted that broader pattern of assaults have started. Bangladesh pluralist culture hinting a worrying trend for intolerance and minority linked sites ki baga debba kodete point of this. So therefore very important for your mains. Next, international culture norms ni violate chesar indirectly. Act against UNESCO's conventions to protect cultural heritage, reflect larger diplomatic appeal to respect global heritage treaties. So this is another important point. Next, symbolic attack on peace and inclusivity and kuda teeskochu kada. Tagore's philosophy embraced universalism, peace and humanism. Vandalizing his memory attacks not just building of the values but also inclusivity in debba kottnattu, tolerance ni kuda debba kottnattu, what he stood for. So these are the points you have to mention on this particular topic. So if you look at this, it's a diplomatic condemnation by India, shared culture legacy మీద దెబ్బ కొట్టినట్టు, ప్లూరలిజం ఆన్ బంగ్లాదేశ్ వల్ల మనకు ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ వస్తున్నాయి, ఇలాంటి చేయడం వల్ల యునెస్కో ఇంటర్నేషనల్ కల్చర్ నార్మ్స్ బ్రేక్ చేస్తున్నట్టు, అండ్ పీస్ అండ్ ఇంక్లూసివిటీని కూడా కంప్లీట్ గా అటాక్ చేసినట్టు అని దీస్ ఆర్ ద అనాలిసిస్ పాయింట్స్ ఫ్రమ్ దట్ పర్టికులర్ అటాక్. నెక్స్ట్, కల్చరల్ సిగ్నిఫికెన్స్ ఏంటో ఒకసారి చూద్దాం. Ancestral home in Sirajganj is a point. Belong to the Tagore family. It's a zamindari and patronage of arts. Rabindranath often visited these estates, drew inspiration from rural Bengal. So that is a conceptual clarity. Tagore's link to Bangladesh AMT. Composed national anthem of Bangladesh. That's the major point. All national anthem రాసిన ఆయన మీద ఇల్లు పగలగొట్టారంటే వాళ్ళు ఎంత క్రాక్ ఫెలోస్ ఒకసారి ఆలోచించారు. That is Amar Sonar Bangla. That is a name very important for your prelims. Deep emotional and intellectual connections to its land and people and indirectly cheppinattu through this poem. Bengal Renaissance kuda aynane. Estate was a part of broader Bengal Renaissance period where Tagore contributed to poetry, education and rural upliftment and foundation for Bengali nationalism. So this is the symbol of this Renaissance. Literary and philosophical legacy of Mr. Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore's work in this region focused on rural life, harmony, peace, and is a critic of narrow nationalism. He is a critic and making this a home, a symbol of intellectual legacy. So, ఆయన చేసిన వర్క్స్ అన్ని కూడా డిస్రెస్పెక్ట్ చేసినట్టే కదా ఇప్పుడు. అండ్ ఫైనలీ, ఇండియా బంగ్లాదేశ్ రిలేషన్స్ దీనివల్ల భయంకరంగా దెబ్బతింటాయి. Form of cultural bridge between two countries. He was the bridge for both the countries. Attacks on such places threaten soft diplomacy and people strive for long underpinned bilateral relations. People to people relations కూడా భయంకరంగా దెబ్బతింటాయి. So this is another major point you can write for your mains. So here we have discussed about how Tagore ji was so important person for Bangladesh freedom and intellectual and property and cultural ties which we had, which Tagore ji had with respect to Bangladesh. Breaking and vandalizing his ancestral home shows sign of weakness from Bangladeshi government. Therefore, strong action should be taken from both India as well as international forums, because international norms indirectly break chesnate and it's a threat for India. Therefore, India should take a strong action for vandalizing a great man's home, where revolutions and renaissance of Bangla has been brought out. వాళ్ళ నేషనల్ యాంథమ్ రాసిన పర్సన్ వాళ్ళ ఇల్లు పగలగొట్టడం అంటే ఇట్స్ అ వెరీ బ్యాడ్ థింగ్ ఫ్రమ్ బంగ్లాదేశ్ సైడ్. అమర్ సోనా బాంగ్లా, దట్స్ ద నేమ్, దట్స్ ద నేషనల్ యాంథమ్. సో ప్లీజ్ కీప్ దిస్ ఇన్ మైండ్. నెక్స్ట్ టాపిక్, IEA board censures అంటే ఫసాక్ complying with nuclear obligations. So Iran ki baga debboard in the process now. So let's look at the major points of it. IEA board censured Iran for non-compliance with nuclear obligations. First such resolution in 2 decades. Renewed global push for nuclear accountability. Similar censure eppudu jarigindi Iran 2005 lo jarigindi, where 2015 ultimately led 2015 Iran nuclear deal JCPOA. దీని దెబ్బ దీని మీద పడ్డది. బట్ షార్ప్ గ్లోబల్ పోలరైజేషన్, వైల్ ఫ్రాన్స్, UK, Germany and the US supported the move. Yes sir. రష్యా, చైనా అండ్ బుర్కినా ఫాసో ఈ ముగ్గురు ఇరాన్ కి సపోర్ట్ చేస్తున్నారు. ఫ్రాన్స్, UK, Germany and US supported the decision by IEA, but Russia, China and Burkina Faso have not supported the decision. దానివల్ల ఒక జియో పొలిటికల్ పోలారిటీ అనేది డెవలప్ అయిపోయింది, ఫ్రాక్చర్. సో 11 కంట్రీస్ chose to skip the vote. ఓట్ వేయడం అనే 11 కంట్రీస్. సో ఇండియాకి ఫేస్ డిప్లొమసీ బ్యాలెన్సింగ్, ఎస్పెషల్లీ బిట్వీన్ వెస్టర్న్ అండ్ allies like US, UK, France and all these fellows, and traditional friends like Iran and Russia. So ఒక పక్కనేమో allies, బిజినెస్ పార్ట్నర్స్, ట్రేడ్ అగ్రిమెంట్స్, ఒక పక్కనేమో ట్రెడిషనల్ ఫ్రెండ్స్ లైక్ రష్యా అండ్ ఇరాన్. వీళ్ళిద్దరిని ఇండియా బ్యాలెన్స్ చేయాలి. సో అదొక పెద్ద తలకనొప్పి అయిపోయింది ఇండియాకి పాపం. మేజర్ పాయింట్. సో ఇరాన్స్ బోల్డ్ న్యూక్లియర్ రిటాలియేషన్, ఇట్స్ అ ప్రొవోకేటివ్ రెస్పాన్స్. ఇరాన్ అనౌన్స్ అ న్యూ న్యూక్లియర్ ఎన్రిచ్మెంట్ ఫెసిలిటీ టు సెక్యూర్ లొకేషన్. దానివల్ల అడ్వాన్స్ కేపబిలిటీస్ పొటెన్షియల్లీ బ్రీచింగ్ ఎర్లియర్ అగ్రిమెంట్స్. Iran now possesses uranium enriched up to 60% purity, which is very dangerous, and weapons grade up to 90%. This is a very, very important statistics. Stats very important. This will lead to tensions across West Asia. Former US ikkada problem aitundi. Trump em pitch vaagutadu. Air strikes resurfacing on US Iran tensions. Dani valla military confrontation jarugutundi. Gulf could get affected. Dani valla oil prices spike avutundi. Indian energy security baga debbatintadi. Imports భయంకరంగా దెబ్బతింటది. Threats to 8 million Indian expatriates in that particular region. So that is a basic problem. 80 లక్షల మంది, చాలా ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఉన్నాయి. సో ఇండియన్ డయాస్పోరా అక్కడ ఉంది కాబట్టి మనం చాలా జాగ్రత్తగా పెట్టుకోవాలి. సో అగైన్ దిస్ అనదర్ బిగ్ ప్రాబ్లం. ఒక పక్కన బంగ్లాదేశ్, ఒక పక్కన చైనా, ఒక పక్కన ఇరాన్, ఒక పక్కన US, ఒక పక్కన రష్యా, ఒక పక్కన చైనా, వీళ్ళందరూ కలిసి మొత్తానికి మనం we should be very, very careful right now, because war is at the brink of a war. So India is the only country which can control everyone, because global south, global north, everyone wants India to become a leader. So India should carefully, smartly do the work of soft diplomacy. So emergency protocols by allies, especially US Embassy in Jerusalem has strict travel limits. American families are being repatriated due to possible threats. Evacuation orders in 2003 Iraq war lo jarigindi already. Serious apprehensions. Diplomatic window still open. Crucial for Iran. US talks in Oman offer de-escalation through timing, and critical risks are being mounting. Stability through diplomacy could help India maintain trade ties with Iran, including plans for the Chabar port. That's major important, which is a key to India's Central Asia strategy. So మనకి ఇష్యూ ఇరాన్తో. సో ఇరాన్ని మనం సపోర్ట్ చేయాలా వద్దా? ఎందుకు? ఇరాన్కి మనకి ఏంటంటే చాబార్ పోర్ట్, ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ రూట్ ఫ్రమ్ పాకిస్తాన్, అది మనకు చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్. సో ఇప్పుడు ఇరాన్ సపోర్ట్ చేయకపోతే చాబార్ పోర్ట్ ఇష్యూ వస్తుంది. సపోర్ట్ చేస్తే allies ఫీల్ అవుతారు, సపోర్ట్ చేయకపోతే ఫ్రెండ్స్ ఫీల్ అవుతారు. సో ఇండియా స్టక్ ఇన్ దిస్ డిప్లొమసీ. Therefore India should take a careful step on it. So I hope all of you have enjoyed the video. Please collect these nice points. ఏం లేదు, రివైజ్ కరో. సో let's have a quick review of what we have done. Iran issue we have done, IAEA and what are the impacts. Then Tagore's home vandalization impacts. Then we have done retail inflation. All the concepts have been mentioned. So please keep a look at this. Then we worked on Bangladesh authoritarianship with the monetary problems. Then we spoke about G20. Then we spoke about US proposals on exports and all these things. Then what do you mean by Trump's tariffs? Concepts are mentioned. Have a glance at this. Impacts have also been mentioned. Then we did Kochi Kolkata metro bus. So electric vehicles, funding constraints, urban bus and metro, all these type of things have been done, and urbanization topic also we have done. So quick review of these topics. Urbanization topic, yes, we have done. Trump tariff issue we have done. India's US, Bangladesh authoritarianism we have done. Retail inflation also we have done. India condemned vandalism of Tagore House also we have done. And Iran for non-compliance also we have done this topic. So these are all the major things for today's newspaper. So that's all for today. Please, my sincere request to all the very serious students, watch the video, collect the points, draw flow charts, create your own prelims as well as mains questions, and whatever points I have underlined and circled and put stars, collect those points. That will make your preparation very easy. So that's all for today. Have a nice day. Please take care. And your work, RQ, revise, revise, revise. Shaman Paidikurdala signing off for today. Bye-bye.